Thinkific is the only course platform in this whole series that looked at its own limitations and tried to fix them. I'm going to show you what that looks like and why trying to fix them isn't the same thing as actually solving the problems. Okay, so I'm using the same lesson that I've used on all of the other platforms. It is a brain dump from my own course. It has 3 different pathways that people could take. We've got video, text, interactive things, activities that they're doing. In Thinkific though, it's gonna look a little bit different because Thinkific currently has 2 course builders. They have an old course builder that I'm gonna try to run you through as fast as possible. And I'm guessing that's what most Thinkific users are currently using. And they have a new beta builder that looks like it's adding features to fill specific learning gaps. Like the potential for interactivity is greater. And I'm going to run the same lesson through both. I am Dr. Catrina Mitchum, and I've been designing and redesigning courses online since 2009. Let's jump in. Okay, so there are some things about Thinkific that are really nice, right? The user interface is super clean and clear. There's like not a whole bunch of clutter over here. And it's very obvious where things are. Also, creating a course is super easy. This is the home page in my school. And if I click on create, I can choose the thing I want to create. If I pick a course, it will let me create something with AI. Very, very tiny down here in the corner, skip, create a blank project. That's what I'm going to do. They divide things up. Instead of calling them modules, they call them chapters. And so I'm going to go ahead and create module 1. And then you see it pops up over here and I can add a lesson. So the lessons, I get to pick different styles. I can pick video, text, PDF, quiz, audio, download, multimedia, survey, presentation, assignment, or a live Zoom. So I'm just going to start picking things to show you what that process kind of looks like. So it's the same things, right, as the other platforms. Enter title. I have videos already uploaded. There is no link option. It is just video options. And then you can add text and downloads if you want to make it a lesson. And then you can make it a prerequisite, enable discussions, and you can decide whether or not the video is downloadable. Okay, the other lessons that I want to kind of show you are the quiz and the survey. So as you can see, the quiz, when you go to add a question, it's just multiple choice. And then on the survey, you can add free text, which is kind of like you'd be able to do some back and forth in an assignment. And then the other option is an assignment. This is us trying to answer question 1, whether or not we can track something other than they clicked complete. So this is where we would put the instructions. There aren't a whole lot of other options in terms of what we can let them do with assignments. They would be uploading an assignment as opposed to doing it in Thinkific. And so that's really kind of it. It does say upgrade to unlock more lesson types. I feel like that is a little bit bullshit, but the exam is the thing. I'm guessing the exam will look a lot like a combination of the quiz and the survey. You might be able to have open-ended questions, but really whether or not that's useful is going to depend on what your course actually needs. Okay, so this is still the old builder. I went ahead and built some things out. So I have 2 different options for module 1 here because this is a lesson that I am doing that has multiple paths. And so I had done a video or text, and then some multiple choice questions, and then the brain dump I made into an assignment. I also broke the brain dump out into its own module because otherwise module 1, as I start to move into step 2, module 1 will get a little bit out of control. So in a situation where you have multiple paths, I would make each path its own chapter in here. And we're going to go and see what that looks like on the preview. So you can see this is the pick your path. Those are the instructions. What is your question? And then uploading a file. So this is the one that I would choose. So this is picking your path. I can play the video directly. I can't turn on any captions. There also was not an option to upload captions. I can download files and submit my assignment here, or I can pick path 2, which is a survey. So I did go ahead and put both of these as options in here because I'm going to go ahead and show you what the learner side looks like so we can answer question 1. Okay, so I am looking at my student self user information, and so we can see that I have made 71% progress. So it is tracking whether or not I'm submitting things. I went in and had submitted the quiz and the survey. I did not submit an assignment. There isn't really anything I can do in terms of responding to these things from this point. So I'm going to go ahead and check out the assignments tab, which is actually located under users. So I'm just in users and I had clicked on myself. So I'm going to go and check out the other areas. So there's a student progress tab where I can download progress reports, which are just the percentages again. There's a discussions tab. I didn't create any of those. There's assignments. And here we can see that there's a pending assignment and I can either download the file, send a message, approve, or reject. So if I choose to send a message, it will go to my student as an email. And there are other things I can submit. So I could give feedback here pretty easily. Just it becomes off platform, right? And we have to make sure that they're actually getting it right. Right now, I'm having a lot of issues with people that I communicate with going into my spam. So it does get kind of potentially dicey if we're relying on email for feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and send that, and I'm going to approve the submission. And then I'm going to go back and see if the percentage has changed. Okay, so I'm back in my student self as user, and we can see that in the old course builder, because I accepted the assignment, the progress did go up to 85%. So we are able to track things. We are able to give feedback, even though it becomes external and could be a little bit dicey in terms of going back and forth, but at least email is easy to respond to. And while I was hoping that the survey open-ended question option would make a space where we could go back and forth, that is not the case. All I can really do with that response is export it. So I'm going to give a conditional pass on the ability to track whether or not students are doing something other than click complete, because it is showing up when they're doing the activities. I am also going to give a fail on question 2, because as I walked through already, and as you can see, it's not easy to set different paths. And for question 3, we're going to jump into the student view real quick. Okay, so this is what the student view looks like. It's really similar to the preview. I can select files to submit if I have an assignment, and then that's relatively easy, right? We're probably looking at 2 clicks, so I could click the URL, I could paste my URL in, and then I can submit it. For the survey, I have already done it, but it was just type in the answer and click submit, kind of. There wasn't a whole lot of extra clicking. I have already submitted an assignment to this one, so I can download my assignment, or I can just press continue. Like there's no way to resubmit something unless it has been rejected by the instructor. Even though I can stay in here to do all of the work, there is still a lot of clicking, right? Just over here, this is just to get through path 1, because you can only set up a single lesson at a time. And all of the quizzing or the assignments, those all have to be separate clicks. So even though the submission piece is pretty easy, it's the way that you have to create different lessons in order to have information about a topic that fits more than one type of style. And so for question 3, we're going to get a conditional pass because we've still got friction. Okay, so as you can see, I've been playing. We're going to jump into the course maker where I use the new course builder just so I can show you what that looks like, and we're going to rate it on this. Okay, so one of the things that I do like about this new space is it's not that different in terms of where things are laid out. What is nice is all of the different types of lessons that you could make in the old builder, you can now build into a single lesson here. So you have all of these different options. So what I'm going to do is walk you through how I have built out this step as I'm going. Okay, so like I said, I like that I can fit all of my first step into the brain dumping piece. I have the pick your path here. I was able to also put the video in the same exact lesson. I didn't have to separate those two things out, and I got control over where to put it, right? If I wanted to put the video first, I could put the video first. And then I started to just drop in all of these different tools to see what they did. So you can put things in as Google Drive. When I put this here, this is an audio that is in Google Drive. It's not pulling it up. My guess is because we are still in beta. This was the ability to build a quiz. Again, this is something where we get multiple choice or multiple correct answers, but no open-ended questions. I was able to embed a document from my G Drive here. So this is just the first step of my challenge. And then I could also embed a form. So in addition to the text, video, image, quiz, PDF, like these are all the things we normally have. Under more, there were documents, surveys and forms, interactive web content, and SCORM or HTML. So that's what we're getting ready to go look at. So I got really excited about the idea of being able to put interactive things in here. And so the very first thing I did was go and create a Padlet. If you haven't heard of Padlet, it's commonly used by teachers, and you can kind of set up different ways for people to engage and interact. So I did that. And the thing that I found is when somebody interacts with this, they don't have to be logged in to Padlet. And so it pops up as anonymous. So while it does make it super easy to interact, and I'll show you the student view in a minute. It makes it super easy to interact on here in a lot of different ways because Padlet is a fantastic tool. I can't track it because they're anonymous, and starting to ask people to go externally to sign up for additional tools to be able to use the course platform. Like we're starting to run into the problems that formal education have where I had to get super creative if I wanted to use something that was this interactive. And it's a very different story. Now, the second thing that I wanted to point out is I really appreciate where Thinkific is coming from in some of these beta changes. The being able to put interactive pieces, and Padlet's not the only one, but they do all have this same problem. And I also appreciate the idea of putting in SCORM. So what SCORM is it is it's a tracking system. It does track things that are more like clicks and behaviors and quiz type things. You can build in open-ended responses into a SCORM. Those are harder to track. You basically just track the submission the way Thinkific's old builder already does. But SCORM is a packaging system, right? And so it takes the ability to track those things from where you build it and you put it in here. So you as a designer already have to have access to the things that let you build those things. So I happen to have some SCORM packages. I have one from D2L, one from Canvas, and then one from Articulate 360. I was using Storyline to build some things a while ago. So those are expensive, and I found that only the Articulate 360 one worked, the SCORM package from D2L and Canvas, which are the LMSs used in higher education. Those the system didn't like. So they're not going to work here because they're not kind of a packaged file that works together in one place. They work better across each other. So this is what I would see that makes like kind of an interactive video situation. It's talking right now. I just don't want it to play. So it makes an interactive system that, forces things. These are tools and software that are typically used in corporate training, which is why it's a little bit surprising that it ended up in Thinkific, because they are pricey tools to build with, right? So Adobe Captivate and Articulate 360 per user, we're looking at around $1,500 for Articulate 360 and probably about $500 for Adobe Captivate. There are other interactive authoring tools, like e-learning tools, but this seems to only be taking SCORM from those two. In fact, I think when I went to click embed, it says any custom HTML5 project. So in theory, it should have taken my D2L and my Canvas zip files, but it didn't. It should also in theory take something like Camtasia, right? They have an interactive tool builder. Actually, that one's my favorite. But anyway, they tend to be more expensive, and they are still falling into the interactivity is clicking on things, right? You do get to design more specific learner pathways, but they tend to be better for smaller kind of micro course situations. So while I appreciate what Thinkific is trying to do, I'm not quite sure that it's going to be hitting the mark. Because here we get into, like, we lost the assignment. I lost the assignment feature, right? And now all of our pieces have to be embedded from the outside. So our surveys have to be embedded. We can do the quizzes, but like I showed you, those are just multiple choice. So we're kind of back in a place where we can make it interactive, but it's difficult to track that interactivity. So here, Genially, Quizlet, Padlet, like those kinds of interactivity external tools are what they're expecting you to embed in here. But again, that gets difficult to track unless you're having people make accounts because there's no like single sign-on that's connecting their account information from Thinkific to those external tools. So for question 1, whether or not we can track students doing things other than watching videos and clicking next, I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like on the learner side, just so we can see. So this is what the lessons look like. This is the step 1 brain dumping. I can see the whole Google Doc that I embedded here. I can see the form. So this, I would in theory be able to add, if you had a Google form where you were collecting email addresses, you could track that way. And then here's my Padlet that I had set up with a different account. And so I can respond with comment. Again, it pops up anonymously. Now, you could make it so that when you set up the Padlet, it's not open and available to everyone. You could make it so that they have to log in, but that is just going to be creating more friction and another barrier for students. Now, my SCORM didn't show up over here. I don't know why. I'm not going to try to go figure out why. I'm going to leave that up to Thinkific, but it didn't show up. So I am going to give question 1 a fail. Okay, so for question 2, whether or not we can build multiple pathways, in theory, like the ability to have the SCORM in here would make it like that piece could make specific pathways, but you can't set up any sort of jumping around like we could in some other platforms. You can't set up the ability to skip. Like I'd have to, even though I was really excited about having step 1 be all in one lesson, I would still have to break up the step 1 paths into different lessons. And so have the modules like I did in the old builder. Okay, and then answering step 3 is how much friction in order to be able to do the things and submit the things. The embeddability is really nice. So I don't actually have to leave the platform to do any of the things that I was assigned to do, which is nice. But the friction that you would create by having people, need to create accounts or sign into other things, that could potentially create some friction. The fact that I can't see this at all, like that's friction right there. And so I am going to call this a fail, even though I really do appreciate the attempt that's being made here. What is happening is I am wondering if this is being designed less for businesses to sell courses and more for maybe internal training, or, this is starting to look and feel a little bit like the cobbling together that I used to have to do in higher education, which I appreciated being able to use additional tools, but people that are buying courses from you are going to have less tolerance for that than a student buying an entire degree from a university, right? Because there's more promise, earned or not, about what you can do with that degree certificate. And there's more support, right? If a student in a university does not understand how to use a tool, those tools are often supported by the university. When you're a designer on your own or with a small team, there are more tech issues that can come up that you may or may not want to support. Okay, so I am now running the Sucessible, the accessibility checker. So I'm in the CourseMaker new course build, and I ran it, and there's just one issue of low contrast, and it is this embed button down at the bottom. That's not surprising. That gray color tends to be a problem. And that's it. Wasn't really surprised by that just because of the color choices that Thinkific uses in their navigation. And their logo is literally a word. Let's jump into the preview to see what it looks like on the student end in terms of accessibility. Okay, so this is the preview of the published content. And it came up as no issues. Now, I don't know if because it is embeddable, right? So I don't know if the embedded pieces are being read by Sucessible or not, but this is promising. If you would like to use Sucessible for yourself, you'll find the link in the description. Okay, I did forget to run the video page through Sucessible before I stopped pressing record, and it did see that there are no captions, and so the inability to upload captions is a problem. Okay, so the old builder is the same as a lot of the other platforms that we've seen, right? I had to do some workarounds. There's some ceilings. There's some issues with the back and forth in assignments and being able to track things other than videos. In the beta builder, there were more options for building in interactivity and engagement into your course. Thinkific's beta builder is genuinely trying to solve the problem of engagement, right? But SCORM and e-learning authoring tools were kind of built for curriculum teams, right? People with instructional design backgrounds, people with corporate or enterprise level budgets, people with instructional design, people with dedicated tools, or with experience with tools outside of your typical platform, which is what their old one looks like, right? So if that's you, then the beta builder in Thinkific has a lot of real potential. If you're a solo course creator or have a small team or don't have somebody in your back pocket that handles curriculum, then it might be a bit beyond what's going to be helpful for you. And it's going to end up you're going to end up not leaning in on the engagement tools that they're trying to build. So the question for this one is different than any of the other questions I've asked in this series. And it is, do you have a curriculum background or a curriculum team or person? That's the question that you need to answer in order to determine whether or not Thinkific's new beta builder is for you. I don't know how long they're keeping the old builder around or if they're keeping the old builder around, but despite the genuine potential, it does seem like in order to be able to take part in the engagement, you need to have that kind of background. Thinkific was the only platform so far that has looked at the gap and tried to fill it. And so I really want to give them kudos for that. But you really need to think about whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. In this case, it's not just about what does my course need. You do need to think about that. But also, what will I be able to take advantage of with this particular tool? If you're not even sure if you're ready to choose a tool, I have a free quiz for you in the description. And next time, we're using the same lesson, same 3 tests, and we're going to be taking a look at Go High Level.